Okay, right. It's just a bit of an impromptu chat, mainly for the people that aren't specialists in anything here. Because a few weekends ago, went to, first of all, Whitecross Greenwoods down between Bicester and Oxford, which is a BBOWT site. Fantastic little woodland, really out of the way. So if you are Berks, Bucks and Oxen Wildlife Trust, it's very difficult to find. 2 lock gates to get through, no markings, but then a lovely private car park and just a really lovely wood with grassy glades, and they've cut semicircles and regularly cut at different times to promote different species of butterflies, mainly black hairstreak and some quite rare things down there. It's absolutely wonderful. Lots of tree creepers, lots of long-tailed tits everywhere. And we just sat on a bench in a crossroads and saw a pair of spotted flycatchers, which is the first I've seen for a long time. And that was lovely. From then on, we just went up to a little road. Be careful. There's a little village called, I think it's Murcott, just to get a pint and a sandwich. And the pub there, we parked in the car park, and neither of us noticed that it's a Michelin 2 restaurant. And the cheapest thing on the menu was cod and chips at £28. So we didn't stay too long. So then we decided to go up to one of our favourite places, Otmoor. And we just thought we'd just fill a couple of hours and walk out to the first bird hide. And show of hands, how many people have been to Otmoor? That's an awful lot of us. That's great. So along the long gravel path up to the right-hand turn where you've got the first hide hidden away on the left-hand side, there's plenty of things going on, but I'm going to skip over that. Because walking backwards, coming back towards the car park, I heard a willow warbler, and there was a sedge warbler in there as well. And Sarah and I, my wife, just stopped to have a look at this willow warbler, which I felt was from here to the wall away, with our backs to the marshes. There's the little ditch that runs alongside, and deep woodland. There's something else in there I didn't recognise. So, whilst this will come up again, whilst we were looking from here to there, hearing this willow warbler, and it was coming backwards and forwards, there was this constant burring sound, which I didn't recognise. As we looked through and ducked, and my wife being about 10 inches shorter than me, said, there's a pigeon type thing in there. And as we got closer, we realised it was a young cuckoo. Oh, there you go, it did jump through. And whilst we were there watching this for about 15 minutes, the object of this talk is, for anyone that doesn't know too much about stuff, talk to people that are obviously looking at something. Because, oh, hang on. There we go. So 2 guys independently both came and with us. One, sort of quite an old chap, was in tears because he'd never seen a cuckoo and had been bird watching for all his life. We were there watching this, and another guy turned up with a huge, great lens on his camera and took these wonderful shots. And we got to the stage where I said, well, would you mind if you take another shots, sending them to us, which he did. And I said, and if I can also share it with other people that I know, would you mind? He said, no, not at all. So he'd been there all day, and we now got his details. So we spent a long time watching this, probably about 15 minutes, just watching this happening. The warblers were to and fro all the time. And then there we go. So there's several of these, to and fro in. And then he also had these pictures of what turned out to be a pair of marsh harriers. And that's a particularly lovely one. What's the name of that, Martin, when they go wrong, the coloration goes strange? Right. Yeah, indeed. So, and these, we saw the thing for that, for a female with the light head. She was wandering around, got very, very close to us, and then the male turned up as well. So the male's always darker, female lighter. And there they are. They started playing and doing their displays. So obviously, Otmoor is a very good place to go to if you want to see marsh harriers. I think nearly every time I've been there, they've been there. And but she's a beauty. That's quite a rare thing. We got all three egrets in one picture. So we got a great egret on the left, little egret in the middle, cattle egret on the right, and that was a bit of a treat. And there's the difference in size there between the great egret on the left with the yellow bill and the little egret on the right with the black bill, and just about see one of his yellow feet. Black legs, yellow feet. And there's the three of them again. The cattle egret, obviously, with the sort of beige coloured front and the beigey crown. And almost always near cattle, and there were cattle in the fields just to the side of this. And there's a nice little one. So a snipe there. I think it's a little plover behind it. Yep, there we are. Yeah, sorry, little ring plover because it's got the yellow ring round the eye. It's nice. Another egret again. So it's just a run of. Is that it? Has that got to the end? Or was that stopped again? There were more, I thought. But... That's all I've got. Okay. All right. Well, that's all. I must have condensed the numbers. But the object was for anyone that's not sure. If you see anyone that's obviously an ornithologist or someone interested in dragonflies, I'm sure almost all of us would say the same. If you get someone coming up to you that just asks what you're seeing, what you're looking at, and why, we're more than happy to share that knowledge and experience. And it was great that I was so pleased this guy said oh yes, of course, I'd love to send it on to us, because they were so keen to see what we'd seen. So the cuckoo was because of us that he wanted to show us what else he'd seen as well on the day there. And I think that goes with almost any place. So Otmoor, always worth a visit. We didn't get to the far hide, but the one on the corner. And just where you go up the side there, there's usually a good place. They've got a couple of little patches, the hides for the grass snake and stuff like that, which are usually about as well. But try not to disturb them too much. But that was nice. And Whitecross Greenwood, if none of you have been there, that's worth a little visit. There's no facilities, but it's just a double gate lockable car park. And you can easily spend 2 or 3 hours there just walking up and down the glades and seeing all sorts of things, particularly butterflies. So save it to the summer, really. But Otmoor's always a good place. So I'm sure that's a bit short. I thought there was more photographs on there, but a bit impromptu. But just ask questions. If ever you see anyone looking in the bush, don't be. No one's going to arrest you for asking why. Or they'll probably let you know to go do one if you're not welcome. But I think most people ornithologists are pretty friendly people, I think, especially when other people show interest in what they're doing. Okay. So any questions about any of those birds or pictures or anything? Yes, Jim. I'm sure it's a willow warbler, that one. It certainly sounded more. It's so difficult to tell them apart. It could be a reed warbler, but I think it's more likely to be a willow warbler. But we heard willow warblers, garden warblers, chiffchaffs, which are all very, very similar. Joan and I have sat in a hide together on one of our walks, and it's so difficult to tell, especially from about 4 or 5 weeks ago, when the juveniles are just starting to turn into adult plumage, because lots of the youngsters all look so similar. And you'll notice this time of year as well on your feeders at home, the goldfinches are starting to look a little bit different, a little bit dull. All their mating plumage has gone, and they're just coming back into next year's star plumage. So you can't always, particularly with warblers, am I right in saying this, Matt? Particularly with warblers, lots of them at the middle of summer, sort of June, July, August, once they've done their mating bit, they all look a little bit duller than they did in March, April, May. Yeah. Well, that one would be, yes, indeed. Because that was literally every 2 to 3 minutes, either one of the warblers was coming back with a new piece of lunch for the cuckoo, who didn't move. He just purred away with his mouth open, or he or she's mouth open, and just took whatever they could. But that was good. And to go to a place where you see all 3 egrets in one shot as well, that was incredible. Okay. Anyone else? All done? Oh, yes.
For me, not as a pleasure, is actually sharing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, indeed, indeed. And you can always, with most of the things I think most of us are interested in, it is just so easy to walk past and never see. The last time, one of my favourite places is Titchwell on the Norfolk coast, which is RSPB. And not the last time we were there, the time before, we'd just walked back from the beach. We sort of tend to meander through the marshes and go out and see the Turtle Dove area and the Spoonbill area, and then up to the beach, have a look at the sea. There's never anyone there. It's the best beach in the country, but don't tell anyone because there's the other people there then. And then when you walk back along, just when you get back to the visitor centre, there was a guy stood there looking in the ditch. I said, "What have you seen?" And there's a water rail just walking along that ditch below us. And to get, again, from here to that wall from a water rail, which I think we've had a couple of walks where we've heard them, but they're like bitterns. The trouble is they're only about that big. So they're very, very difficult to see. A very well camouflaged moorhen that just stays inside the reed beds. But to see one just in a little stream below us was cracking. And that's only because we asked. So talk to people. Don't be frightened. Okay, that's me done. Thank you.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. Right, come here. Hello, who have we got on Zoom tonight?
Janice and Alison.
Janice. Hello, Janice and Alison. If you're still there. Right, oh dear, too close. Evening, folks. Good to see everybody back. It seems like a very long time this year, but it's nice to see everybody back in. Yeah, the Aigas Field Centre. It's hello. Yep. Yeah. Send me down. Aigas Field Centre is somewhere that we've wanted to go. Well, I've wanted to go there for as long as I can remember. Really, it's somewhere very special. Has anyone been in here? No. There are some of our members. Julie Lane, who's not on Zoom tonight, and actually I think might be on an Aigas week this week. She told us she was going quite early September. I didn't think it was this week, but she's going on a botanical trip to Aigas at the moment. But it's the home of Sir John Lister Kay and his wife, Lady Lucy. And Sir John Lister Kay, if anyone doesn't know, hopefully some of you have read some of his work, is probably one of the most well-respected and you know, and what's the word? Prolific writers on natural history in the British Isles. He really is a fantastic writer and done a huge amount of work for wildlife conservation north of the border. And that's his pile. It's not bad. It's even nicer on the inside. And it's spectacular. And it was always really the cost, to be quite honest, that put us off going. It's expensive. It's really expensive, and it's a long way. It's such a long way. It's a long way from anywhere. So it's further north than we normally go when we go to Scotland. We normally stay in BBOWT of Garton or Aviemore, that kind of area, and see plenty of really nice birds and flowers and things. But this year we thought, oh, what the heck? Let's just take the plunge and go. So we booked on what is called the famous. Let's get this right. The famous Aigas Wildlife Week, of which they run about half a dozen through the year. And we went end of June, I think 29th of June, and came back on the 7th of July. So we were there for the first week of July. And you'd think, lovely, warm, midsummer. It was chilly. It was very, very chilly. And for reasons that I won't bore you with, for various complicated reasons, we didn't drive. We were planning to drive up and have a break in sort of Tyneside area, visit some of Helen's family, and then drive up to Scotland. But we didn't have time in the end, so we went by train, and we had a very nice journey by rail from Milton Keynes up to Inverness, which was great. In fact, the journey going up was great, wasn't it? Don't ask about the journey coming back down south. That was not so good. But we had a good journey, and they pick you up. They run a pick up and drop off free service. So they pick you up from Inverness, take you there, and that was basically the site that we saw as we were driving up Aigas Road. Anyway. That's about it. Everything was fantastic. The accommodation is great, the food is great, and there's quite a lot of flora and fauna to see. So the very first day, oh no, sorry, this is not the first day. This is not my photograph, but But we did, on the second day, in fact, we did go out in the Cromarty Firth on a dolphin watching cruise. And if those of you that know Helen and I well, dolphins are usually a bit of a sore subject with us because we generally draw a blank. We go to places where we're guaranteed to see bottlenose dolphins. We don't see them. But we went out on a dolphin cruise. I think there's about 12 of us in the boat. And we'd seen our first dolphin within about 10 minutes, bottlenose dolphins. Because we went by train, I didn't take much with me. I only took a phone. I didn't take a camera, believe it or not. So I was just using a camera. So all of my pictures are of invertebrates and flowers. But there was a really nice couple from Perth who were in the boat with us, and Alistair took some pictures, including this pair. But you can see there. So this is one of the most famous dolphin populations in the British Isles, and you can see these are urban dolphins basically. So this is I'm trying to think where that is. That's not Inverness. Inverness is off that way a bit, but this is part of the Cromarty Firth. Very industrial, lots of shipping, lots of big shipping containers and things. But really good. We probably saw about I think we saw 3 pods of dolphins with about 5 or 6 in each. So it was fantastic. I got some nice video, but I won't try and show video because that will bring the whole system crashing down again. And only other gratuitous mammal picture. So the rest are all of invertebrates. But so this is a wildcat. This is a Highland wildcat, but as you can probably tell, it's not wild. So this is part of the captive breeding project. So the Aigas Centre is registered with Nature Scott as one of the kind of stud sites really for breeding wildcats. This chap is called Cole, C-O-L-L. They're all named after Scottish islands. And poor Cole has been removed from the breeding programme because he's judged not to be pure enough stock, basically. He's only about 80% wild and a bit domestic moggy. So he's now kind of the kind of education cat. But he was lovely to see. So it was the only wild cat we got to see, and I can't really claim to have seen a wild cat in Scotland, maybe one day. But they are doing some really good work now. There's about 10 sites around the Highlands of Scotland where they're breeding these. But how they're ever going to get past the problem of feral cats and interbreeding, I really don't know. Anyway, that's it. No more cute birds or mammals. That's it. So the very first trip that we went on was to an incredibly beautiful place, Glen Affric, where we were looking for golden eagles, and we were all watching the skies for golden eagles. And then one of the ladies shouted out, "What's that massive moth?" And I went chasing after this massive moth, which is not an oak egger moth, which you do see in this country. This is the northern egger, so it's basically the northern race of the oak egger moth. But they are pretty big moths and very fast flying and quite spectacular. So we're very pleased that one grounded. Moths were a bit of a sore point on the trip. Again, had we driven, I would have taken at least 1 moth trap, maybe 2 with me. When we booked up for the Aigas week, I said, "Can I bring a moth trap?" And she said, "Yeah, by all means, bring a moth trap. People do, but we've got 3 or 4 around the site, and they're on every night." Turned out not to be the case. It was pretty cold while we were up there, and a couple of nights were very, very wet. So they weren't running moth traps. One night, the education team did run a moth trap, and Helen and I managed to kind of jump aboard that. We gate crashed their education session when the kids were going. I got to see some nice moths, but it wasn't really until the very last morning, just before we got the train back, that we did a proper moth session. But we did see some good ones. Butterflies were really, really difficult to find. Obviously, it wouldn't be a talk of mine if there wasn't a butterfly in it. Didn't see anything much. A few whites, a few meadow browns, and things like that. It was very, very poor. But the one thing I would say, if you do go on an Aigas field trip, it's not restful. So you are jumping on a minibus going up this mountain. You're on a minibus going to this loch. It's a very, very busy itinerary. They keep you going, but you don't have to. You've paid your money. You take your choice. So you don't have to go on. We'd have to go on any of the excursions if you don't want to. By the middle of the week, I was flagging a bit, and there were rumours of sunshine on the Wednesday. So I think it was a trip Oh, that's right. It was the 4 a.m. trip to go and watch otters. I thought, no. So Helen and I had the day, and we just stayed and we visited Aigas Lock. We walked down to Aigas Lock and just saw things there. And I walked up. There's a hill fort there. Nice bit of archaeology. So I walked up to the hill fort looking for dragonflies and things, and saw 2 of these. So this is the small pearl-border fritillary, which is much more widespread and abundant in Scotland than it is in England. It's now quite a rare butterfly in England and Wales, but in Scotland, it's found across the Highlands. And I saw 2 of these, absolutely gorgeous. While I was photographing this with my phone, a clouded buff moth, a perfect clouded buff moth. That's really hard to say. Clouded buff moth flew by, and I did chase after that, but I lost that. So luckily the butterfly settled, and I got some nice pictures of it. So that was lovely to see. But remember clouded buff. We'll come back to that, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous moth. I did show these pictures to Justin. I don't think Justin's in tonight, is he? But chanterelle mushrooms all around Loch Aigas, and that was incredible. Which at the start of the week I was seeing 1 or 2. With all the rain that we had, by the end of the week, chanterelles were everywhere. But as you can see, very well nibbled. Everything apparently eats these, from red squirrels to slugs. They were being diminishing in size, but increasing in number throughout the week, and lots of gorgeous fungi. Now then, so the thing, I suppose, the animal that I was most excited about seeing was beaver, because I'd never seen beavers in the UK before. And I haven't got any pictures of beavers, I'm afraid. My friend Alistair, who sent me the picture of the dolphins, has sent me one, but I forgot to put that in. But you can see anywhere you walk around the Aigas and around the woods, you will see evidence of beavers. And they really are fantastic. I don't know if people have seen this in the wild, perhaps in other countries. Although I must just add that we've just come back from Dorset, and I saw some of those in Studland. So there are people supposed to know about that? I think so. So I've seen it in England as well now in the last week. Nice bit of hard fern there as well on the left, but lots of beaver damage. Unfortunately, the beavers there, which were introduced, I think about 2005, they, if anything, have been too successful at the Aigas Centre, and they're basically eating themselves out of habitat. There were 3 there this summer, a female and 2 kits. And those of us that went at dusk to the beaver hide, we saw the adult quite easily. She was swimming out of the lodge and showing really well. None of us, I don't think, ever saw the kits, but we did see the beaver. So I haven't got a picture of the beaver, but I've got something much more exciting to show you from the beaver hide. We were sat in the beaver hide, and the lady next to me, Sue, nudged me and said, "What's it here? What's this insect?" And we saw one of these. Snakefly. And this is where it gets really interesting, because I'm sure I used to see snakeflies in my youth. I think I used to see them quite a bit, but I haven't seen one for years. Having researched it a bit, they are particularly associated with pine forest. I think there's only 1 species in the UK. Do you think so, Mike? Do you think it's more than 1? Yeah, well, I couldn't find any information up there. And when I showed it to the rangers, I showed this picture of the rangers, none of them had seen one before. So I guess they are much less common than they used to be. But they are just fantastic little. I just think they look like miniature cobras. But this thing was it performed really nicely for us, and it kept us entertained before the beaver came out. So snakefly, very small, I don't know, less than 1 centimetre, this one. Clearly a female, you can see the ovipositor. Really, really fantastic little beast to see. The very last excursion was to Tarbert Ness and Loch Fleet, which is over on the east coast, which is north of where we saw the dolphins. So this is the very impressive lighthouse at Tarbert Ness, which is the tallest lighthouse on mainland Scotland. And this was a botanical extravaganza. It was absolutely fantastic. Good mixture of heathland, sand dunes, bit of scrubby woodland. we were probably only there for an hour, but we saw some fantastic stuff there. Now, oh dear, that's not as sharp as I thought it'd be, but there you go. That's so on the right there, we've got Northern Marsh Orchid, which were all over the place. And to the left of that is Frog Orchid. We've got a better picture of that. So I've only seen Frog Orchid in the Chilterns before. I think I've seen it at the Aston Clinton Ragpits. I think I saw half of one at Tottenham once, but they've been nibbled by something. But these Frog Orchids, as you can see, those Marsh Orchids aren't small. I think I've got a close-up. Oh, okay, there should be some text with that. No. Okay, never mind. This Frog Orchid was, yeah, quite a few inches tall, probably 8 inches tall. It was really, really tall. And the rangers that were with us said, we haven't seen one that big before. That is a particularly nice specimen. There were only two. We only saw 2 of these Frog Orchids. And this was the larger one, but they are really fantastic. As I say, it does grow in Buckinghamshire, but for some reason it really liked it up there on these dune slacks. So I was pleased to see that. I don't think it looks much like a frog. I have to agree with Helen there. You have to use your imagination with these orchids sometimes, don't you? But they're it's certainly a very distinctive green kind of bell-shaped flower. Really nice. You've had a sneak preview of the next one. So this is a curious thing for me. So at the Aigas Centre, this wasn't at Aigas, this was in some woods near Tarbert Ness where we were just looking at. The very first time I went to Scotland, I remember walking into some woodland, I think at the Lochgarten RSPB Reserve, and I saw twinflower. I thought, oh, lovely, it's twinflower. And I think the next time I went to Scotland, I went to the Isle of Skye, I found twinflower everywhere. And I've never really had any difficulty finding this plant, but it's now considered a great rarity. And in fact, the last time before this we went up, I couldn't find it to save my life. But I think there are six keystone species at the Aigas Centre that they're working with Nature Scott to conserve: beaver, pine marten, osprey, and the only plant is twinflower. And look at the scientific name. Linnea borealis. I think later in the season, Justin is going to give us a talk about scientific names. And there's kind of a golden rule that you never name anything after yourself. But I suppose Carl Linnaeus, it could get away with anything. So it's Linnea borealis. It's believed to be the most collected plant in the world because they're clone. It's basically a clone. So any that you find within a wood are probably just of one clone plant. I've always had a real affection for twinflower. It's that it's not perfectly symmetrical, but it kind of does what it says on the tin. It's a really symmetrical plant. There's something very aesthetically pleasing about twinflower, I think. And as I say, it has declined. I've still seen it. Most times I've been to Scotland in summer, I've managed to find a few of these things, but they're really attractive little flower. So I think not as rare as the books say, but that is not the case with this Meneses uniflora, the one-flowered wintergreen. This is a really rare and really, really peculiar plant. So it's in a little genus all of its own. And the more you find out about this plant, the more remarkable it is. So the rangers that we were out with said we've got a 50-50 chance of finding wintergreen. It's really scarce. And in fact, the only one that we found was in flower was that one there. There were about 30 people trying to photograph it, which is why I've got a rubbish photo of the back of it. But it's a really strange plant. So this is myco... what's the word I'm trying to think of? It basically a mycophage. It feeds on this, parasitizes fungi. In Britain, you see it's green. It is actually a plant that can live without chlorophyll, without photosynthesis. It does that in Canada. In Britain, they think it always does use photosynthesis, but it was very, very dark bit of dense pine forest where we saw this wintergreen. Really curious thing. So in parts of its range, I say Canada, it will actually live just by parasitizing the mycelia of fungi and not bother with photosynthesizing. So it's a really odd little flower in a world of its own, really. Anybody ever come across Sunflower Wintergreen? Was that in Scotland?
On the road down to Lockfleet.
Lockfleet. Yeah, this is very, very near. Right. Okay. Yeah, very near Lockfleet. But really, really scarce now. It's declined. Globally, it's declining rapidly. Nobody quite knows why. I know it's down to about 30 or 40 sites in Scotland now. Yeah, so it's had a really, really bad time. But I was pleased to see that. It's not spectacular, but it was a really, really curious plant to come across. You can tell it's one of our pictures because it's not in focus. But on the very last morning, literally about an hour before they were going to drop us back at the railway station, somebody said, "Oh, we have actually. Would you like to see some moths, Martin?" Yeah, I really would like to see some moths. I've been saying that all week. Could we have a look at some moths? So I'll just show you a few. Coxcomb prominent, which come to think of it, I've not had that at home this year. So that was the only one I saw up there. But then they got a bit more interesting. So you remember the clouded buff? This was the only clouded buff that I saw close up, not like the one I chased after. And you can see, hopefully, it's a male, if you can make out the feathery antennae. But when these are fresh, they are brilliant yellow moths with a kind of red or pink dot on the wing there. Absolutely stunning. The females are orange, so they are completely dimorphic. They're different colours. So unfortunately, the only one I got a close look at was that one, which was warm, but never mind. But the one on the right was a moth I'd never even heard of, never mind seen. And one of the education guys brought this over and showed us. It's a thing called Brussels lace. I thought it was one of the carpet moths, but it's Brussels lace. So that was a lovely one to see. In fact, we saw about 3 or 4 of those in the end. And this is a gorgeous moth. I'm going to finish with this because it's just one of my favourites. I've only ever done mothing in Scotland twice now, and both times I've caught this one, which revels in the name True Lover's Knot. Moths have such great names compared with butterflies. So this is True Lover's Knot. It's got this lovely kind of knotty pattern. Oh, there you go. Gratuitous picture of a harvest mouse. We just can't get enough of harvest mice. I put that in there to remind me that not to show that picture, but never mind. But they've got this glorious pattern to them, the True Lover's Knot, and they are a lovely kind of ruddy red colour. So finally, on the very last day, Ewan, who was the youngest of the rangers, who's the insect guy, he said, we've done some moths, we've got a really good trap, we've got to come and have a look. And I said, yeah, but we need to catch the train back to Milton Keynes. So don't worry, I'm taking you to the station, it'll be fine. So it did work out all right in the end. But there you go, that's just a real quick kind of flavour of Aigas Field Centre and some of the excursions. I mean, we covered a lot of miles. We went to the west coast and the east coast, and we went as far. Where did we go? I can't remember now. Almost up to Ullapool, not quite as up to Ullapool, but seagulls, golden eagles, ospreys, pine martins. Save that for another time, perhaps, or maybe I'll put it on the website. But it was pretty special. But if you do go, I would go in summer based on how cold it was in July. Take lots of warm clothing, but also just bear in mind it doesn't feel like a holiday. It's very intense, very, very intense. You'll see a lot of wildlife. You'll eat a lot of food and put on some weight. But we met fantastic people. There were 30 of us on this big Aigas Wildlife Week. 27 English, 2 Americans, and 1 Scot. And we all got on famously. We had a great group. And just to kind of complete the circle, everyone was sharing their experiences. We had guys there who were professional wildlife photographers and other people that just about knew a blue tit from a coal tit, So the whole kind of gamut of experience and knowledge. But people were all sharing their knowledge and showing people where they'd seen some otter spray or where they'd seen an osprey and stuff. So it's very much a kind of community feel. We were really sad at the end of the week because we've made some great friends and didn't want to come home. There we are. Anyway, that's about it. Yeah. Well, what happens now? Glen Affric. I mean, it's one of those places you hear about. I mean, there are so many beautiful Caledonian forests or areas of Caledonian forests. Glen Affric, I'd always heard about and seen bits on television and stuff. I couldn't believe how beautiful it was, and it was chucking it down with. The first hour was fine. Didn't see anything. I think we saw 1 dipper all day because it was raining pretty hard. But it was just took my breath away. It was just incredible. Yeah. The flowers were good. We saw some nice flora there. But it was too wet to see much in the way of birds. But yeah, amazing place. We did that. Yeah, there's a circular walk which takes in a couple of waterfalls. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, we did a 1 hour circular walk that took in a couple of waterfalls and some rapids. Yeah, it was really, really nice. Yeah.
Any more questions?
Sorry, yeah, I should have said.
You didn't mention tiger midges. I know they're very rare up there. Did you have any tiger midges?
Any what?
Tiger midges. The midges. Scottish midges. Everyone knows about Scottish midges.
Didn't see a midge.
No, not.
No, that's a bit of a lie, but no, we got away with it. We got away with it.
Yeah.
We seem to be incredibly lucky when we go to Scotland. We were also, obviously, if you know anything about that, but you're so far north there, it wasn't really getting dark before midnight, maybe 11:30, quarter to midnight, it would start to get dark. So we would turn up at the Beaver Hide. I think I did 3 nights at the Beaver Hide, and we would get there about 10 o'clock. Surely it's going to get dark in a minute. And one particular evening, we were in there, and this huge cloud of mosquitoes midges appeared. And then, would you believe it? I'm not exaggerating, probably about 100 bats. Wow. We couldn't believe it. I had a bat detector, and it was just too much noise. Had to switch it off. Huge numbers of bats flying around, and they were just scoffing them up. I'm sure they didn't scoff them all up, but by the time we came out, there didn't seem to be any midges bothering us. So, yeah, it was incredible. Yeah.
Oh, superb. Thank you very much. Absolutely lovely. Have you? I don't know if any of you noticed. There's been a lack of wasps around this year. There's been an article that I read in a magazine a couple of months ago saying that they were worried about the lack of wasps. I think it might be a cyclic thing, so there may be more wasps around next year. But this is the first year I've seen more hornets than I've seen wasps. They're really, really uncommon this year. I hope it's not a sign of things to come. We mentioned about the lower order of insects and life that needs to be looked at, and I think that's a worrying sign. But on that happy note, thank you so much